how is it going? It's the Fuzz. The long-awaited patch is finally here. Everyone's been anticipating this one because we've been complaining about the meta for quite a while, mainly on account of aggro being aggro and Vamplang just ruining everyone's day. So the developers listened and they rolled out a whole bunch of changes, and let's just say that they took an interesting approach to this. It's not quite what I expected, but anyways, we're just gonna go through it. Some of the cards have very small changes, some have very big changes. We'll cover all of that. So let's kick things off, shall we? Our good buddy Valorsworn Incarnate has been made 2 mana, but its attack and health is now equal to your level, not just your order level, and he's a knight. Okay, so the most important part is that now you can splash him into any high level deck. You know, the same way you would play Shifting Aurite, and he could easily be a 4/4. You don't no longer have to play a mono order deck to use him, and I think that's good. That makes the card maybe a little bit weaker in that sense, but much more flexible because it can be included in much wider variety of decks. You can actually run him with Shifting Aurite and have, you know, 8 excellent instill targets, because if you have a lot of levels, you'll be able to instill Incarnate as a 4/4 while running Wisdom, while running Rage, while running whatever. So I expect to see Valorsworn to be out there, because instilling 2 of these, you know, for 4/4s is pretty good. Always has been good. But now you can do it in many more decks. Like, you can splash Wisdom and play Horizons and getting more levels quicker. The fact that it's a knight, that's cool, but I don't know if the knight synergy is enough. But it's nice. I mean, if you're gonna make a knight deck, you might play him. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe not. Or maybe. Who cares? Anyways, I'm gonna give this change a thumbs up. It's a good change. It's going to be a better card. Also, in Trials, it's going to be a lot better because you don't have to go mono order to use him. Angelic Temple. So the change here is that the angel creature that this turns into becomes, well, is lifebound, and it's not just a 3/3 flying. It's a 3/3 flying lifebound. So that's pretty nice. It's going to be a very crushing answer to aggro, but, well, let's just say there is one card that has been changed that's going to make this card, along with many other artifacts, completely obsolete. But if we were to just ignore that for a second, it makes Angelic Temple, yeah, it makes it better. The whole priest synergy benefits a little bit more. It is an angel as well. Adding lifebound on top of anything, that's always a big deal. And a 3/3 flying lifebound, that's nice. I mean, hell, the Sunborn Subordinate, the white-blue Subordinate, it has those kinds of stats, and it's seen some play. Thumbs up for Angelic Temple. Maybe it'll see some more play. Solemn Prayer. This one's effect, well, 2 of the 3 effects have been changed. The bottom effect, which is to return a creature with 2 or less back to the field, that is half an instill. That's still there. The main change was they eliminated the other 2 crappy effects, and they replaced them with, well, better effects. The first one is putting a shield emblem on all your priests, and the other one is giving all your knights +1/+1 until end of turn. So it's a very interesting card. They're trying to push this knight-priest synergy, and this card definitely works there because you can use it to bring back a powerful priest or a knight, but you could also use it to buff all your knights, or maybe put some shields on your priests. More realistically, you're going to use this with knights, because the knights are the more powerful of the two tribes. Still, the fact that it has those abilities means it's no longer just a worse Instill Life, which is why it wasn't played before, because, well, Instill Life did double that, had double the effect for only, you know, 1 more mana. But now, this card is different from Instill, and if somebody wants to try some knights and priests, this card seems like an obvious inclusion. But again, mostly for the knight synergy, I think. The +1/+1 to all your knights, that could be pretty powerful. I mean, for knights, you've got Valorsworn, is now a knight. You know, Namir, Cavalry Field, and Sunblessed are all, Angel Blessed are all knights. You know, suddenly +1/+1 across the board. That could be pretty powerful. So, thumbs up, good change. Can't wait to see some knights. Exorcism similarly got redesigned. Choose one of 3. The first effect is kind of like a reverse of the previous card. You destroy an evil creature that costs 2 or less. Evil meaning red, black or purple. The other two effects, one forces the enemy to discard an artifact or a spell, and the other one shuffles up to 4 creatures from the graveyard to a hero's deck, and you redraw. So the first big change is that now you redraw. Adding draw a card on the end of anything makes it quite a lot better. So as far as countering, you know, evil decks, so to speak, it's definitely there. You know, you get to kill something and you redraw. Now, whether or not it's actually necessary to play, it will remain to be seen whether these kinds of small creatures really need to be dealt with. But in case you are not playing against an evil deck, it still has some usability. You can shuffle creatures back into your deck. It's okay. I mean, I like the change because the previous Exorcism was so specific that nobody would ever run it. But this one, actually, as a counter card, seems to be pretty good. But I don't think it's necessarily gonna be playable. Certainly not in Trials. But it's nice that we have this. But the whole cost 2 or less, because it's only evil creatures, it's mostly like the order creatures that abuse this, like the instill, more than anything. So yeah, I like the change. A crappy card got turned into an interesting card. Thumbs up. Insignia of the Sun has been buffed yet again. I remember when this card just looked at top 1 card and it was pretty much completely laughable. Well, it's been upgraded to look at top 2, and now we're looking at top 3, guys. Whoa, we're moving up in the world. But in addition to that, whoops, sorry, the way you activate it is different. Previously, you had to attack with 3 or more creatures to give it 2 energy, and that was a little difficult to pull off. Now, you just have to hit the enemy in the face with any creature, and then it gets +1 energy, and then you get the surge. Now, look at the top 3. Assuming your entire deck is Knights and Soldiers, let's say that'll be about half your deck. You have something like 87% chance to actually draw a card. So right up front, it's almost like draw 2 cards, but if you can actually get a hit in, it'll be more like draw 3 cards. It's interesting. It could provide order the card draw it needs. You know, that Knight deck, the card draw it needs. It'll just have to be seen whether or not it's actually good enough. The channeling effect is cool, but you're almost never going to use it. If you're spending 3 mana to play this, you're not going to channel anything because you could have just played whatever Knight you were going to play. You are going to use it for the card draw, not for the channeling. But thumbs up. I've always wanted to see this card in play, and now it's actually close enough that it just might. Whereas before it was like, ha 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 ha, no. Moving on. Protector of the Innocent now costs 1 order and 1 generic instead of 2 order. I always thought that's how it always should be. The creature was so generic, I could never understand why it cost 2 of an aspect, but whatever. It doesn't change that much. It just means that in Trials it's a little bit more pickable. Moving on to Wisdom. Drone got an interesting change. So the effect is now, you pay 2, the way this is worded is a little weird, but you pay 2 mana, and then you put a drone from your graveyard onto the bottom of your deck, and then you can return another artifact creature from your graveyard to your hand. That's pretty cool. It does mean that if you want to use this, you actually have to put drone into your deck, because normally the renovation facility just summon the tokens, and then you use the tokens to, you know, upgrade your creatures. Now you'd have to add the tokens to these things to your deck, but the effect is quite good. I mean, basically, as soon as the drone dies, you basically have a 2 mana kind of like a draw card effect from your graveyard. It's pretty good, actually. However, the entire artifact creature synergy, I think is actually a bit weak. And you know how I said that Angelic Temple is going to be obsolete? Yeah, this whole thing has no chance of ever living as long as that 1 card is the way it is, and we'll get to that in a little bit. The artifact creature thing is interesting, but I don't think it's good enough yet. It feels incomplete. They didn't get enough stuff. I think we have to wait for the next expansion for this archetype to be fully fleshed out so we can actually try some interesting new decks. And when that happens, drone will certainly be in them. Runeland Incarnate has finally been fixed. So the change is that rather than losing energy instead of taking damage, it now loses energy as a result of taking damage. This means the card takes damage, which means it will die to freezing, it will die to deadly, and you can life bound off of it. And most importantly, that last part, when it has no energy destroyed. So no more immortal runelets. None of that. So the runelet is now how I feel it should always have been. An interesting energy card that can grow, but it has this annoying effect where it gets weaker if it takes damage. That's how it should have been. All these other interactions with freezing and deadly were so stupid. I can't believe it took it this long to fix. But finally, runelet is what it should always have been. Thumbs up for fixing the card. And now the charged aura into runelet will not be so annoying because you'll actually have some answers to it. Like you could use Flash Freeze or a Shadow Step Assassin or whatever. No more indestructible incarnates. Snowstorm got another buff. Now it does, you know, the damage equal to the number of creatures +2 instead of +1. So they threw another 1 damage on top of Snowstorm. It's still not good enough for this to be played. Considering it costs double blue, it's not going to be played. But it's not complete trash. When it just did X, you know, equal to the number of creatures, it was complete trash. Now, it's starting to get there, but it's just not quite enough. I think at 3 plus a number of creatures, we might start thinking about actually playing it. Maybe. Probably. Yeah. That it actually might have a chance. But as it is, it's still not quite there. And again, it's double blue. You can't splash it. So, I don't think so. But I'm glad they at least try to make it better. But we're going to have to wait for Snowstorm to be a little bit better. Nature. Neva the Revered got a nerf. Who would have thought? So, the cooldown is now 4 instead of 3. It's interesting that they targeted this, you know, so soon after already nerfing it. But I believe this is because they want to improve nature as a result, you know, as a whole. And right now, Neva is kind of carrying nature because it was such a ridiculously good hero power. But the cards you actually used in nature were just like whatever nature cards, like whatever 2-cost creatures that were decent, you know, in the bear decks, and that's it. The rest didn't matter. You know, they probably want to make some powerful nature cards, but they don't want this hero power to be too obnoxious. So they increased the cooldown by 1. Now it's every 4 turns. It's still going to be solid hero power. And with some of the other changes that we will see, I'm actually looking forward to seeing what happens. See how the bear decks get affected. They'll only get slightly slowed down, but completely fair nerf. Shooting Sprout now has 2 speed instead of 1. At 1 speed, it was absolutely useless because you can never attack anything, so it didn't matter that you doubled its effects because you could never attack anything. You just went face. Now, you could actually start looking at this card and think, can I make this work? Instead of, no, it's trash. Can you actually make it work? Maybe. I don't think so. The idea was always to put Overcharger on it so that it's a 6/7. That's pretty fun. And with 2 speed, it could actually fight on the board. Instead of with 1 speed, it was just useless. But I honestly don't think... I think it's a little too gimmicky. It does mean, however, that the Shooting Sprout totem that summons these things gets a little bit better. That being said, again, I don't think it's quite enough. But hey, it went from completely useless to kind of funny, maybe I'll try it kind of card. Vegetation Blockade! Redesigned. Finally, right? So, how it's different, it's kind of similar to how Angelic Song works, where it's a 2-mana curse that redraws itself the next turn after it destroys itself and somehow annoys your opponent. So Angelic Song prevents your creatures from being attacked. Wall of Fire slightly tickles the creatures that try to attack. This one forces your opponent to pay a 1 actually, well, I mean, it forces you to, but if you're gonna attack, you would attack and then play it. So generally, it's your opponent who experiences this. Your opponent has to pay 1 mana for every non-flying creature they want to attack with that turn. So, I still think the card kind of sucks, because if you think about it, if you're gonna maybe buy yourself a turn early on, where they maybe don't want to spend the 1 mana, and would just rather play another creature, but afterwards, like, it's not gonna be a problem to pay 1 mana. It's really not, and it only lasts 1 turn. Yes, I know it redraws itself, but Angelic Song sees no play at all, even though it's a very similar effect. So Vegetation Blockade is not going to see play, but at least it's not a complete joke card. Empress of the Forest got 1 extra HP. That's pretty cool. 2 HP versus 3 HP is a very big difference. 3 HP, as we saw with Haldiri Rider, is a lot better, so it's a nice buff to the Empress. I'm not sure she's going to find room anywhere. It's just the whole fairy thing isn't good enough. And giving other creatures +1 energy is actually not as good as you'd think, since there just aren't that many creatures that can benefit from it. Really, Foundry Engineers benefits a little bit. Force Mage Protector needs 2 energy, so giving him 1 doesn't do anything. It's a cool card that's gonna probably have to wait a little bit before it finds its place. Kayana could play it now. You know, it's a little bit better there as a 4/4, but Kayana has better things to do. So, but still, I approve of the buff. Thumbs up. Forgot to do that, because Empress was not seeing any play. Now it's a little bit more interesting, and it's a decent trial, this card. Storm Fairy also 1 extra HP, same way. Again, 2/3 is better than 2/2, so that's a nice buff. The card was never terrible, but this was just not quite playable. Is it playable now? I don't know if Nature is even something you want to play, but it's a nice buff, and it's going to be an even better Trials card, so good buff. Making a bad card, or not even a bad card, just a not played card, maybe slightly better. Now the big Nature change. Life Force Incarnate. Now the effect of adding a random creature from your graveyard to your hand happens when it enters the field in addition to at the start of your turn. So you're gonna get 1 card for sure. So it's basically a, you know, enter the field, it draws a card, basically. That's good, because now you don't have to worry about it actually surviving before it starts generating an advantage. It generates the advantage immediately, which is pretty cool. Whether or not we'll see Nature do anything remains to be seen. But, you know what? It's something you could consider, because it does redraw itself. It's very similar to the Battlescar Elder, except it always draws the card and could draw more cards if your board is big enough and you can keep it alive. Good change. Yeah, maybe we'll actually see some Life Force Incarnate action. And in Trials, it's going to be quite a lot better. Now we get to the Rage part. Ancestor's Guide got 1 extra health. This is supposed to help Shamans. Honestly, doesn't help that much, because as a 1/2 it can only kill 1 once, but there's not many 1/1s it can kill. It can kill Plague Vermin now, so Plague Vermin would have to run away from it. It can kill Militia. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal. It's still a kind of a crappy 2-drop, honestly, for Shamans. I think as a 2/1 it'd be better, but as a 2/1 maybe it would be too aggressive of a card, since it's like a Goblin with 3 speed. But I mean, alright. There's nothing wrong with this buff, I just don't care about it one way or the other. Burning Rage got a redesign. So now you play with the top card of your deck revealed, kind of like you do with Niena. And then at the end of your turn, if that card that's on the top of your deck is a Rage action card, you can play it for free, and then you take 2 damage from Burning Rage. So it's a completely different card. It's obviously much less powerful, because it no longer ramps you, and at most you will draw 1 card per turn. However, the fact that you can play it for free, that's interesting. Now that said, what actions can you even play? Well, you've got Dragonfire, Fireball, Fire Blast, Word of Fire, Black Market, which also got a buff, Blood Frenzy. There's a decent number of these actions, but I don't know if it's actually worth including in your deck just to get that going. Because if you don't have enough of these actions, then it's just not going to do anything. And unlike before, playing multiples of these does not help you, because, you know, if you play with your top card revealed, it's still going to be the top card revealed when you play a second Burning Rage, so you don't benefit in any way from doing so. In fact, you'd probably suffer, because you take 4 damage instead of 2. So it's good that they changed it, because it was ridiculous. But I think Burning Rage might have to wait for more interesting Rage spells before it becomes good again. Actually, this card could still be overpowered, but not to the same degree as the previous Burning Rage, just because being able to play like free actions off the top, yeah, that's pretty good. But it's not to the same degree as the previous Burning Rage, so I don't think we have to worry about it being overpowered, but not anytime soon. But it's a card to keep a lookout on. I approve of the change, because Burning Rage was a problematic card that made designing rage spells difficult, and made playing against them not much fun, because they could just redraw on every removal spell. That was not fun. Good change. Blood Frenzy is back to 2 mana. Yeah, at 1 mana it was maybe a little bit too good, because the way it was used was just like cheap removal. You know, you play it with 2 creatures on board, and just to do 2 damage to that 1 defender your opponent played, and that's it. And then you just want to go face. And that's really not what the card was supposed to be, but that's how it was used. So maybe it's okay that it's 2 mana, although I feel like it might not see any play at all because of this. We'll have to see how Rage aggro feels in this meta. If you can find a place. If it even played this at all. Black Market. Now costs 3 mana instead of 4. That's good. It was terrible at 4. Basically, this card will, on average, draw you 2 cards of your opponent's choosing. And then the rest go in the graveyard. So, it's not great. Don't get me wrong. Ancient Wisdom is much better. However, you can get this off with the Burning Rage. And then you basically get, like, just 2 cards in your hand for free. It's kind of like almost draw 3. Which is pretty good, of course. Still, the fact that the other cards go in your graveyard is bad, because, you know, if you reveal a couple Phoenixes, like one or two Phoenixes might go to the graveyard, and that's bad. So, I still kind of, I think the card shouldn't go in your graveyard. They should probably just go into the bottom of your deck. Yeah, I don't expect this card to see play. It's just not very efficient card draw. Totem of Giant Dude with Sword now is a 4/4 instead of a 3/3. Yeah, that's cool, I guess. The problem with this card is that this is not the kind of totem that shamans want to play. It's a little bit better now, but okay, it's maybe not so bad. It can help them control the board, right? But it's a little bit slow. It requires 3 aspects, which is a bit rough. It required 2 before. Now it's 3. Yeah, I actually still don't think it's playable, because it has only 2 energy, so it might get 2 hits off. But you have to wait till you have 3 aspects before you can even play it. And then you have to play, like, Shamans next turn, so... Yeah, I don't think this helps the card much at all. Yeah, I don't think so. Dragonfire. This is the card that makes artifacts obsolete. So, it now costs 3 mana instead of 4, only 1 aspect instead of 2. Welcome to Splash World. And its effect is it deals 5 damage to up to 1 creature and destroys up to 1 artifact. The up to means it could target 0, so it can deal 5 damage to a creature, or it could just blow up an artifact. Like you could do 5 damage to a creature without an artifact on the board to target, or you could blow up an artifact without having to kill a creature. The problem is that it can also do both. It can hit an artifact and do 5 damage to a creature. That is absolutely ridiculous, because it means cards like Helm are literally unplayable, because if you play Helm and your opponent responds with Dragonfire, not only did they save 1 mana, they just destroyed your Helm and killed the second creature. So, yeah. Want to play a lamp? Nope, you lose a lamp and another creature. Yeah, and because it only costs 1 red, it's very easy to splash. And because of the next card that we're going to cover, I imagine it will be splashed quite a bit, because just 5 damage for 3 mana to a creature, like, that's good. That's actually the best removal Rage has right now. The next thing is like Fireball for 3 damage, you know, in 1 aspect, but it's only 3 damage for 3 mana. Dragonfire, like, just the first effect, deal 5 damage to a creature, like, that's solid. Like, if it just said either deal 5 damage or blow up an artifact, it would still be a solid card. But the fact that it can do both makes artifacts just... Like, I'm scared to play any artifact, because Dragonfire is gonna completely crush me. Helm? No chance. Lamp? No chance. Reflector? I mean, if you're not playing creatures, maybe it's not so bad, but man, splashing red with this... Ugh. I do think that's gonna have to be changed, because that's just too good. Like, this card does not pay anything to destroy artifacts. It's already a good, efficient removal spell that also not only can destroy an artifact, but it can destroy an artifact in addition to destroying the creature efficiently. So if your opponent plays an artifact, that's an automatic 2-for-1, you know, in most cases, so ugh. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm okay with Helm not being playable, but I'm a little bit scared that this makes all artifacts not playable. So I do hope they make the, that it can only do one or the other, not both. It should not be able to do both. And last card, Phoenix, now costs only 1 aspect. Man, I mean, Phoenix was never a bad card. It was always a solid, sticky creature. Now it's splashable, along with Dragonfire. Like, I actually played ranked a little bit, and I ran into some people literally just playing Phoenix and Dragonfire from red, because why not? It's just splash 1 red, and especially if you're playing Shifting Aurite, you already have Swift Aurites. Now you also have Phoenixes and Dragonfires added to your deck. Oh, by the way, it says it return it with X. Don't worry about that. The Phoenix works as normal. This is just a typo or something, but I don't know how I feel about this, honestly. Phoenix is a powerful creature. Should it be this easily splashable when something like Ancient Treant is still double nature, right? I think they might want to put this back to 2. I don't know, maybe. Maybe they might want to make more cards single aspect. You know, there's quite a lot more cards that are single aspect, but maybe that's okay. Make everything more splashable and just, you know, let you combine a lot more aspects. That might be cool, actually, but they're gonna have to be even about this. Like, Ancient Treant now is starting to look terrible because it's 2 nature, whereas this is just splashable, and it's easily as good as the Ancient Treant, if not better. So, we'll have to see. Moving on to Dominion, Despina had a slight change. It now costs 3 mana to activate, but the cooldown is 3 instead. Because Vamp Lamp is basically dead, because, well, one, Dragonfire craps on lamps, and you'll see why with a Vampirism as well. You're gonna have to use her in some other way. The fact that it costs 3 instead of 2 means you can't pull off that silly little turn 4 Cataclysm thing where you had 4 mana, you play Power Surge, and then reload mana, and you hit 5 Crystal, and then you Cataclysm. Can't do that anymore. You have to wait one more turn. It is as a shorter cooldown, which is cool. It's probably fair. No, it's a fine change. I'm fine with that. We'll have to see if people manage to find some obnoxious combos with this one. You know, but for the time being, while it's not broken, I welcome the new Despina. Gnome Surgeon got a bit of a redesign. Its ability to search for an implant and put it on the board has been split so that it pays 1 mana to either search for an artifact or, I mean, implant, or put an implant on the board for free, not for 1 mana, but not both. So it can only do one of those 2 things. So it's obviously a lot weaker. That said, Gnome Surgeon was a little bit annoying because just constantly putting overchargers on the board was nasty. I do think you should have 2 health now, because since his effect is a lot weaker now, I think having 2 health would mean he wouldn't die to, like, mostly Cathedral of the Night, is what I mean. So, okay, that's fine. But again, because Dragonfire is the way it is, I'm not even sure implants are playable. Vampirism. This is a very interesting change. So it's not only 2 aspects instead of 3. And it says vampires you control get +1 attack and lifebound. So no more health. It's just attack. And that's important because 1 less health on your entire board will make a difference. Now, the second part says at the start of your turn, creatures you control become vampires. So they get the bonus. However, this means it will not work with Lamp, because Lamp is not a creature at the start of your turn, so Lamp will never get this bonus. Furthermore, if you play Vampirism, any creatures currently on the board will also not get the bonus. The bonus will only apply to creatures that, you know, are on the board at the start of turn when Vampirism is on the board. So obviously the card is much weaker. That said, it no longer does damage to you, which is cool, which means you can just think of this card as a buff. Just like a buff on your board. Might be interesting in Soldiers because turning militias into lifebound goblins. Yeah, I kind of like that. So we'll have to see if Vampirism is good enough. It is splashable now, which is kind of cool. I think it opens up a lot of interesting ideas with Vampirism. So we'll have to see how it finds its place. I do like the change because Vampirism was just only abused with Lamp, and now it can't. But there's other things you can do with it. Well done, developers. Cataclysm is exactly the same. And this is going to surprise some people because, I mean, there have been like outcries about this card. I'll say this. The developers are aware of the potential issues this card can cause. However, they have decided to approach this differently. Because what Cataclysm did is what allowed control decks to be control decks, right? Because you could just clear the board anytime. So rather than take care of that, they went after Vampirism, right? So you can no longer ramp up the Cataclysm and then Vamp Lamp for days. You can't do that anymore. You can still play Wisdom Dominion Control. It's still good. But you're going to play it differently. And the thing is, if you play creatures yourself, then Cataclysm becomes worse because you can clear the board, but often you'll be in a situation where your opponent has a lead on the board, but you have 2 creatures as well, so you take a hit when you Cataclysm. It's usually good for you, but it's not cost-free, whereas before when you had lamps, well, your lamps just stayed on the board, and you just kept hitting with lamps and kept healing. Now you can't do that anymore, so maybe Cataclysm is okay, actually. It might just be alright, because with Phoenix being splashable, we're gonna see more sticky decks, like decks with sticky creatures. Like, don't forget about a card like Ziera, which basically acts like a Flesh Sculptor by summoning the Enchained Souls instead of the Zombie Legionnaires. So now Corruption has 2 cards like that, so that's pretty interesting. So Cataclysm is gonna, I think, maybe be necessary for those decks to even function, but it's not going to be oppressing, because one of the reasons is because Helm is now taking a dive because of Dragonfire. Without Helm, it's a lot harder to deal with singular threats. You know, you can't just Cataclysm every single creature they play, right? And Karthus has only so much reach. If your opponent keeps playing big and dangerous cards, and you can't Helm them because of Dragonfire, it might be okay. So, I'd say leave it for now. We'll see how it pans out. Cataclysm might just be okay. And because we now have Soul Projection, we have other board clears. I still think we're lacking. I still think Nature and Wisdom are severely lacking in removal. Wisdom got a little bit better, but still. Anyways, moving on. The Murderous Chieftain, the card that looks awesome, but nobody ever played, now costs 1 aspect instead of 2, like 1 Dominion and 2 generic. It means it's splashable. Are you actually gonna splash it? Probably not. It's not a bad card, but it's nothing special. I mean, Dominion is not something you splash. Dominion is something you specialize in. So, this actually doesn't make much of a difference, honestly. In Trials, though, it might make the card see more play. Drela, also 1 aspect. Same as Phoenix. I mean, I guess it doesn't make a difference, really, because, again, you're not splashing Dominion most of the time. Although, I guess you could. I mean, you could put in Bloodwell Matriarch and Vampirism and Drela. But do you really want to? I suppose you could make a 3-color deck with like Dominion and Rage and play Drela and Phoenix. We'll see. I mean, Drela is not a well-liked card because of her annoying effect of looking at your hand and picking something into discard. Still, I guess it's okay. We'll see if if we do see more Drelas because of this. Scatterdoor's Bidding. This one's interesting. So it says choose 1, right? And then it's one of those 2 effects. Either you gain life at the end of turn equal to half the mana you spent, or your opponent takes damage equal to half the mana he spent. Now, when you play Scatterdoor's Bidding, you will choose one of those. That effect is permanent. That is to say, you don't choose every turn. You will choose one effect, and that's the effect you stick to. So if you choose the life gain, you will keep gaining life like normal, but you will never burn your opponent, unless you play a second Bidding and you change it. That's fair. Honestly, I don't think it changes that much, because the reason you played Bidding is to heal, was to survive and recover your life. The fact that you burnt your opponent was just a nice bonus. But 9 out of 10 times, you're going to play it for the life gain and not the burn, unless your opponent is low on life and you want to make sure they can't come back, which could happen. Yeah, it does make Scatterdoor's Bidding a lot more fair. It also means Control is going to have a tool that lets them survive, because healing 2 or 3 HP per turn means you can stay alive quite well. I'm still not a huge fan of this card, but it's gonna be a lot less annoying, because if your opponent is healing but you're not burning for trying to kill him, that's fine. The worst part about playing against this card before was that not only is your opponent healing and getting further and further away from you, you are actually losing life for trying to play the game, and that was so frustrating. Now, your opponent's gonna pick the healing most of the time, so alright, fine. We'll let Scatterdoor's Bidding be. I've actually played with it a little bit. It's not that powerful. It's certainly very nice to have, don't get me wrong. And because it's a spell, it's actually kind of hard to remove, because other than Ray, I mean, Unicorn is not seen much. Well, I mean, Hate Bears might play it, or some Bears might play it. So, fine. Scatterdoor's Bidding, fine. It needed a nerf. It got a nerf. I'm happy. Back to Corruption, the last one. Enchained Soul now has the ability to sacrifice itself to gain 1 life. That's pretty awesome, actually, because it means if you have a lot of Enchained Souls, they are not dead on the board, you could just get rid of them and gain a bunch of life. If, you know, if you played a Shrieking Banshee or you've got a Zera and you summoned like 8 of these things and, you know, they can never attack if you don't have Zera, then just sack them and gain a bunch of life and disconnect from the server, because apparently browsing through my collection is not considered activity. Can't believe we're still dealing with this. Whatever. Anyways, good change. It means the Enchained Soul has a flavor of its own. Yeah. Thumbs up. There's actually an interesting 1-drop now. Death Curse Shaman. Whoa. So the first effect got upgraded to give -2/-2 when it dies. That's ridiculous. So basically when it dies, it casts Noxious Fumes. That's a pretty good effect. Not gonna lie. It means it can basically trade with a 3/3. Or it can kill like a goblin and a lizard. So yeah, it's actually an insane card now, I think. It's basically just as good, if not better, than the Survivor. The Survivor was a 1/1 that blocked a hit and then summoned the zombie. This gives you a Noxious Fumes instead, which is probably a lot better because it's a lot more proactive. It does mean your opponent has to have a creature to target, but it means Death Curse Shaman is always going to trade well with almost any early game card, because again, 1/1 attack with the Noxious Fumes basically trades with a 3/3. That's really good. That makes the card really good. It gives Corruption a defensive early game drop, which will encourage more mid-range and control Corruption decks, and especially because it can splash Phoenix and Dragonfire, I'm expecting to see like a Corruption deck that splashes maybe multiple colors. I actually run into S-Lock on Ladder some time ago. He was playing something like that where you had Corruption, but he also had some Phoenixes, you know, in addition to that. And of course, you know, he had blue. So there's a lot of possibility there for some interesting cards. And this card will basically be in every single one of those decks because it's just such an effective defensive card that, you know, against aggro, it's going to kill 2 creatures basically all the time. It'll kill a goblin, or it'll at least absorb 2 attacks. So yeah. It also has the ability to take away 2 life, which is nice. The most interesting synergy that S-Lock showed me was playing this with Zera, because you'll play him, he dies, but then you can choose the effect. You can just Noxious something, right? And if you have Advanced Nepharos, you can bring him back, he dies again, and then you get another Noxious or another 2 life drain. So the card is going to be insane. It's going to be great in Trials. Cool. Word of Pain is completely different. It no longer drains life. Now, for each of your Corruption levels, you put a weakness emblem on that many creatures, right? So, and then you draw a card. So, you can almost think of this as Consume Spirit, but split up, right? Rather than giving them -/- to 1 creature, you give it to different creatures. The only thing that sucks is that you cannot choose the same creature twice. You know, if you want to use all 3, if you have 3 aspects, you have to hit 3 different things. You don't actually have to select that many targets. You could just select less. You can also play it when there aren't enough targets, but you can only put 1 weakness emblem on a creature. So, I mean, that's not necessarily a bad change, because Word of Pain was just a card that you used to stay alive. You know, you heal, you burn a little bit. Now it's a card that's like additional removal. Now you have this, Noxious, and Consume to add to your removal arsenal. I mean, if you play it for 2 aspects, you nail 2 creatures. That's not at all bad. It's not great, but because it's 3 mana. But it's interesting, and it draws you a card, right? So it's removal that draws a card, like Word of Fire, right? Now, that said, Word of Fire costs 2 mana, and this is 3. And this is not necessarily better. I would say actually not at all better, because you have to target different things. At 2 mana, it would be great. It would be insane. It would be basically on the power level of Consume, which might be dangerous because then it's Consume. That's like a Word of Fire in the same aspect that Consume exists in. So yeah, it's still a decent card because you have it in addition to your other removal. So it'll still be played. Now, the main thing that this changes is that some decks like Demons are going to suffer because Demons relied on this card to heal, right? They don't have it anymore. They only have Succubus, which does hurt. I've not played Demons since the patch, but I can tell you that Word of Pain was very nice to have. You ran 4 copies because you needed the healing. Now, you're probably not going to use it at all because you don't need more removal, really. Maybe you'll play, but probably not. It means with less healing, it's going to be hard to play Demons. You might even have to just play a different style of demons where you actually do destroy your own portal regularly, and then you just use it for, like, the card advantage. But I don't know. We'll see how that works out. Dr. Styx will help quite a bit. The card is still okay, I think. Would a deck like Zombies play it? Yeah, possibly. You know, if you have a board, if you're up against like an aggressive rage deck, you know, you nail 3 of their creatures with this, you'll take away a lot of damage from their board. It's a decent card. We'll have to see if it's actually good enough to make the cut. I don't play like Zombie Rush that much, so I don't exactly know it. All right. Eternal Servitude is now 1 corruption, 1 generic. It was 2 corruption. That's good. I mean, at 2 corruption, it was too specific. You can now splash it, which is kind of cool. It means you can give the advanced Nephiros hero power to somebody else. That's nice. I actually really like that idea. So, good change. Makes the card more splashable. Spoils of War. The card that broke my heart when I saw it has been fixed. And it's doing what I said from the start it should be doing. That is trigger when any 3 creatures die. Not when 3 of your opponent's creatures die, because that's ridiculous. Now, it does cost 3 mana instead of 2. But, you know, drawing 3 cards is a powerful effect. And because you have cards like that Shaman, you know, that cast Noxious Fumes when he dies, and, you know, Plague Vermin, it's not too difficult to set this up, actually, if you can kill your own creatures, and it's a powerful card draw engine. So, yeah, Corruption now has a tool that could help them play control. I approve. Now, they removed the 3rd effect, but the 3rd effect was gain 3 life. That's garbage in comparison to draw 3 cards, so you'd never use that. I mean, you're never even going to use the Enchained Souls. You're going to use it to draw 3 cards. It might as well just say draw 3 cards. If 3 or more creatures die this turn, draw 3 cards. It'd be cool if it did both, but that might be too good, because that's a little bit too much board presence and card draw. That's still good change, makes a terrible card actually interesting. Dread Knight now costs 1 aspect. I think we're starting to see a pattern, like with Phoenix, with Drayla, with this guy. They want to make them splashable. I mean, that's cool. Are we going to see this guy? I don't know. But hey, if you want to splash Corruption, throw in a Dread Knight for kicks. I mean, that's cool. It will also help in Trials if you are just, again, splashing Corruption and not going double aspect into it. You can actually pick a Dread Knight and feel good about it. Good change. Now the dual colored guys. Soluxio now costs 3 mana instead of 2. That's pretty cool. It means a deck like the Hazy Blue, we'll call it Nuclear Chickens can use this because it's cheaper now. And because Valor Sworn works the way it does, they can actually add Valor Sworn into the deck as another instill target, and it's another big creature. And Soluxio could fit right in because it's a fairly well-statted creature for the cost with a useful effect. Disabling your opponent's hero powers? Well, that's pretty cool. I like it. Tren had its health reduced by 1, but its requirements are now 2 instead of 3. That's a big buff because 4 health is not that much worse than 5. Since there is nothing in the game that does exactly 4 damage, but not 5. You know, Fireball, Fire Blast, and Alter do 3 damage. Dragonfire and Dragon do 5 damage. So yeah, it's basically the same. But because he is 1 aspect cheaper, the first thing that comes to my mind is Kayanu. Kayanu can play this as their first trigger and get a 5/5 unstoppable trend that prevents Mind Extortions, Outbreaks, and Devious Plots from being played. And you can buff him up next turn to prevent, you know, Pacifies as well, and like Soul Flames. That's cool. I actually like that. I wonder if Kayanu's gonna play this. Can't wait to see. Good change. Makes it the card better. Jacquerie now costs, again, same thing as Tren, 1 less aspect. That makes it actually pretty good. Like, the stats for the cost are quite interesting. And you can buff up your own creature, too. The Rage Dominion Slave deck is an aspect that it's like the developers were trying to push in the expansion. Never quite took off. With a buff to Jacquerie? Maybe. Maybe it's worth a try. It's a pretty solid, it's pretty well-statted card. 4/4 for a 4-drop. With a +1/1 buff, potentially. Could be really good. And Raigon was changed so that the demons that get summoned are equal to your corruption level only and not your total level. This is both good and bad. It's bad because when you play it at first, which means, you know, at 2 aspects, it'll only summon a level 1 demon, so you give them a Nightbringer, whatever. The main way to use Raigon was to give your opponent Dr. Styx, and then, you know, you could kill Dr. Styx, and then resummon it and get another trigger, and that was pretty good. But now you're gonna have to have 3 aspects to do it. The good news is that you can prevent yourself from forcing you to summon succubus for them, because you can just never go to 3 corruption aspects, and you'll never have to give them a succubus. So it's kind of good and bad. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty funny card. It's got great stats. 3-5 is really, really good stats. You'd have to give your opponent a Nightbringer, which kind of sucks. And then I guess next turn you might go up Aspect and try to give them Doctor 6. It's gonna have to be tried out, honestly, to see if it actually does anything. I don't know. This is like, this change is neither good nor bad. It's like in between. On one hand it's good, on one hand it's kind of bad. Whatever. That's it for the changes. Again, my overall impression is positive. I like a lot of the changes. And the way they handled a lot of the issues was interesting. Like, rather than just straight up nerf a bunch of cards, they just buffed other things. Like, what decks were a problem? Okay, Vamp Lab got straight up nerfed. No doubt about it. They prevented Vampirism from working with Lamp. But they did that instead of hitting Cataclysm or Karthus or Helm. Helm got kind of indirectly nerfed by Dragonfire being completely overpowered. I do hope they change it because it's ridiculous. Other than that, yeah, it's pretty good. Like, Knight's got some new stuff to play with. Nature got some buffs. That's pretty cool. Wisdom, actually not really. Rage is now splashable because you can play... Oh, wait, there's actually a card I missed. Hang on a second. But there's actually not much to talk about with that one. But, yeah. Forgot about that. Yeah. Battle-Scarred Elder is also had its aspect cost reduced by 1, just like Phoenix, right? So, Battle-Scarred Elder, Phoenix, and Dragonfire are 3 Rage cards which cost only 1 aspect, so you could easily throw them in, and they're all very good. Okay, this card is just broken. Phoenix is just really solid, and Battle-Scarred is really solid. So, we might start seeing Rage as a splash. That's actually kind of cool. Now, I don't expect you to splash both of these. You might just pick one, probably Phoenix, but Battle-Scarred is not a bad pick. Maybe you'll go like half and half. So, yeah, Dominion is the one I think we were most interested in. Scatterdoor got a nerf, that's good, because, ugh. And other than that, Corruption actually got buffed with the Death Curse Shaman being a pretty good card. So how is aggro going to do now, right? Does that mean we'll see less control? No, I still think we're going to see control. And you're still going to run into Cataclysm, but you're going to have a chance against it because the Cataclysm player can no longer just kill you with lamps. I mean, you could still play Vamp Lamp, but your lamps will not heal you anymore, and they will not be 5/4. They'll just be 5. They'll actually just be 4/3 lamps. I mean, you actually don't have any reason to play lamps anymore. So overall, good changes. I am curious to see what we see. You know, Corruption is looking interesting. Some kind of a tricolor splash with Corruption, Rage, and Wisdom, perhaps. Or Corruption, Dominion, Wisdom, or something like that. A lot of interesting things they could do. I still think Nature is a bit weak. But, you know, all in good time. Wisdom is still what it is. But I am hopeful. I would say overall the developers did a good job with this patch. I don't think we're quite there yet, but we're making good progress towards a really fun meta. And I do think this next Masters is going to be a lot more fun than the last one. A lot more fun. We're going to actually see new decks. That's awesome. I just hope Dragonfire is fixed so that artifacts are not, like, completely unplayable. Anyways, thanks for watching. I know it's been a long video, but there was a lot to talk about because it was a big patch. So, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.